Welcome to All About Data on Federal News Network. Now your host, Jory Heckman.
Thanks for joining me this week on All About Data, a conversation with chief data officers and the people who are making data work better in government. On today's episode, we're going to hear how Customs and Border Protection meets both its national security and customer experience missions. Here to talk about it is James McCament, the Chief Digital Transformation Officer at CBP. This interview was recorded back in April. James, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jory.
CBP is such an interesting agency because it's so many different things. It's a national security agency, it's a CX agency, and I want to get your thoughts on how you can integrate those two things together, that they're not in conflict with each other, but they're complementary. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure, absolutely. And I'll just mention, CBP is, of course, you mentioned, known, we're the nation's largest law enforcement agency. We're also the largest trade agency. So on any given day, we have about 1.2 million people or more coming through the ports of entry, through our 328 ports of entry. We have every day billions of dollars in goods coming into the port, and CBP is evaluating that. So we're dealing with an enormous amount of customers, an enormous amount of data. And at the core is guaranteeing the secure facilitation of lawful trade and travel. So we are always looking at not as a choice between national security and customer service, but together you have to link national security and facilitation of lawful trade and travel. And when we have a secure system, secure identification, secure processes, that's actually going to facilitate the speed of providing the service. The more we can lock the identity, the more that then someone, you and I, traveling through global entry, for example, one of our programs, the more that we're certain of that identification, the quicker that person's experience will be. Mm-hmm. The more opportunity there is for us to save time and focus on national security issues and questions and people we need to look at are trade and goods. And so technology is allowing us to integrate that national security and customer service facilitation together. We've also always used technology, if I can brag on CBP, back to the earliest days. Customs service began in 1789, but we've always been looking for technology to force multiply our mission. Because our mission, our people, we have many people, we have over 65,000 employees, but we also have an enormous mission that always outsizes what we can provide through our people and our personnel. So we're always looking for ways to close that gap, to speed up time, return time to mission for our people. And technology allows us to do so.
Well, to that point, because technology has always been evolving and the mission's always been evolving, can you just tell me perhaps that latest chapter in that story of what you guys are doing with the latest technology, things like AI, things like automation?
Absolutely, and thanks for that question. I think AI has emerged on the government work stage, of course, more recently, but really for CBP, we've been using artificial intelligence as defined by the current definitions of today and the next gen for about 10, 12 years. And so that's played out on the border along the automated surveillance towers, on the maritime mission. CBP has the largest maritime team outside of the Department of Defense in the detections that we can use on the boats. And then also at the ports of entry with a non-intrusive inspection technology and being able to screen cargo and people as they approach the ports of entry. And so we use that data. Great to hear, right, that we are using AI. How does that translate to mission? Well, it translates to mission through anomaly detection, data integration, and being able to put context to the data and to return that back to our officers and agents so they have more integrated data to make their decisions. But we often use this phrase in CX world and CBPX world of human in the loop. Our humans, our officers and agents, are in the center of that decision-making loop. They will never leave that loop. They will never leave that center. What we need to provide for them is integrated data, which AI is allowing us to do at a much quicker speed, just as the volume of travel and goods coming into the country is increasing. As one example, our traveler volume, passenger travel volume, has increased over 34% since the end of COVID. So we have more people coming, more data. AI helps us deliver a secure facilitation of lawful trade and travel in ways that are necessary to our mission. So we're continuing to look for additional ways to draw in the AI, and machine learning, large language models are a key part of that.
Yeah, so just to underscore that, because the data is growing, the workload is growing, and the workforce is more or less static. It seems like the AI is enabling that ability to make the data a strategic asset, something we hear so much about, being able to glean the insights out of it, getting the intelligence out of it in real time, and really getting the employees empowered to make sense of that data in real time.
Absolutely, that's right. It's keeping our employees at the center. It gives them even more of the data integration to deliver on. And you mentioned on our workforce, I mentioned 34% of the passenger increase, since 2021. Between 2013 and 2023, our workforce increased by 8%. So we don't keep up with that. What we have to give to our employees is what do they need to best do their job that they're uniquely trained to do, right? And this is an exciting part, I think, of AI, is it provides this data integration, it provides information back in ways that the machine learning is best suited to integrate large volumes of data. The decision and intuition on what to do and execute on that data is that of the officer and agent, the human in the loop, the center point. And so it really gives us a great, exciting tool to give them time back to mission, and yet still, and however, time back to mission means the mission they're uniquely suited and trained to do. So their job satisfaction should go up. Job satisfaction, important, it's about retention too. We want our officers and agents to be on the front line for many years and feel totally equipped and trained to do so. Oftentimes, large as CBP is, the largest in the country is the law enforcement agency. It is true. Many of our ports we have many employees there. We also have, in some offices and locations, are very small. You can have a Border Patrol checkpoint with 2 or 3 people on shift, and they're the central decision maker. We owe them the use of technology in ways that will allow them to do their job and focus on what they can uniquely do when they have very little backup around them. And that's okay. They do it tremendously well already. This is a way we can give them even more tools to be effective at security, national security, and facilitation.
You actually raise a great point. So much of CX, so many of these practitioners will tell you that a lot of that work begins with the employee experience, hearing where their pain points are, hearing where their unmet needs are, and once you address those, the CX improvements, the public-facing ones, they respond as well. That once you address this on the employee side, the public-facing customer experience improves as well. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Absolutely. In fact, we, for CBP, exemplify and emphasize our employees in the way that we retool the term of CX for CBP as CBPX, so CBP experience. And it's only a slight moniker change, but it's very significant for a law enforcement agency to know we are focused on what they need to deliver the national security mission. And so that CBP experience hears the voice of our customers inside and guides the decisions we make on what efficiencies are needed, how we can reduce redundancies, how we can provide back time to mission. A couple of concrete examples include in the trade side, the vessel entrance clearance system was traditionally a paper-based by which vessels that come into port will provide their information when we clear them. Well, we moved to a digital experience for them, and that was based on both needs of our own officers as well as the brokers. Well, that returned back almost 300,000 hours back per year to mission for our employees. It also returned a time for them to use in their time back to mission. It also ensures that they're satisfied with the work that they're doing in a much different and better way. And I could give you multiple examples of where we're using the technology to provide back to our employees their satisfaction, their experience is better. And when you're frustrated, when it takes time to piece together, when you have to look at, even if it's like the iPad I have in front of me, you're still trying to piece together the data and the information, and you have minutes to make a decision on who is entering the country or what. Mm-hmm. By having the data delivered, then our employees feel much more satisfied, and they are able to deliver the national security mission. So same point, right? But it is using those technologies in some of these examples. We're looking at how to simplify the processes, automate. It comes after simplifying and innovating. And I'm pleased to say, too, on the technology side and related, it's both listening to our employees and watching what they do. We have at CBP over 1,400 employees that are in sort of this informal grassroots innovators, I call them, because they're on the job, they're responding to the needs of the job, and they're developing Power BIs. I think we had last count, maybe somewhere around 14,000 Power BIs that have been developed grassroots level by our employees saying, I need this fixed. I need to expand time to mission so I can go from 4 forms to 40 forms an hour to be processed. The information, the actions still need to be done, but watching our people use the systems and tools they have available to find their solutions and deliver them back to mission is exciting, and we're looking to champion even more of that, while knowing that they're doing so with the highest attention to national security and facilitation.
So that feedback really is playing out in a way that's actionable for the employees who know where the problems are.
That's right. That's right. And we do listen to those who are working with us, right? So Global Entry, for example, we revamped our customer experience division, revamped with our Office of Field Operations, the Global Entry website, to which we have more than 8 million people accessing it each year, and found that there were some things that through usability testing, they were frustrated in trying to access information. Well, they're paying customers. They pay fees to us for Global Entry. And we recognize that even with the over the 10 million, 12 million people who are part of Global Entry, we want more to participate in this. Because Global Entry, as an example, is a tremendous national security facilitation because people are able to enter through the different airports and their identifications are matched. And so we are listening to them by enhancing this Global Entry website. It's a benefit in the national security side because the more that participate, the more that we're able to ensure those travelers who we don't have concerns about have a much more seamless experience, and our officers and agents have a much more seamless experience with them. So it's listening to both, right, and trying to carry that out.
And James, so many agencies right now are really going through this digital refresh, making sure that members of the public, when they are trying to do their homework, making sure they're going through some travel, that they have everything that they need, that they're able to find what they are looking for on cbp.gov. Can you explain a little bit more of that improvement, that digital refresh of what's going on online?
Sure, absolutely. So we've been looking closely at what the user experience is in accessing our different programs, and certainly one has been the enhancement and the rework of the Global Entry customer service page, and also our Trusted Traveler program page. That we conducted usability testing, found that there were just some points that, while this is a well-visited website, over 8 million people in the last fiscal year were accessing it, that there was some confusion on where to locate certain parts. And our concern is for that and for other accessibility, the digital space of understanding who CBP is. Our mission is well known, but the tools that we need to update with continue to evolve. And one of those is the ability to, our bringing of people and goods into the country, so being sort of the face of the border, has, not surprisingly, for many years, grounded in paper. And so over the time, we begin moving many of our programs from the paper to the digital space. It's also important to know there's a whole infrastructure and framework in the trade community, particularly, passenger too, but particularly in the trade side, that has required the use of paper, that we have required that use of paper. So now, moving forward in the ways to streamline that requires ensuring that you don't lose any data, you guarantee the security of the goods that come in. And we've been undertaking several different projects, both on the passenger and the vessel screening, to move from a paper to digital environment. And so I think you'll see over these we've been conducting some studies already with respect to pipeline oil and the steel industry and the shipping, as well as foodstuffs once they arrive at the port of entry, how we can best facilitate the processing and move from the paper to digital, but not slow down the process, and make it easy and intuitive for people to process the information and provide us the information. One example on the passenger side, so we have the CBP Home, which is the app that has evolved in several different usage names, platform by which we have several different use cases, and one of which was I-94. So if you've flown at some point in the past, over the years, you may remember the CBP form that you would be handed and you'd fill it out. And do you have anything to declare? So we've now moved that on to the CBP app to be able to just fill that out. You don't have to do this on paper anymore. Another application that we use now and moving into the traditional to the digital side is mobile passport control. So just by way of background, we have captured for many years biometric information. So the face, your eyes, your being able to identify you biometrically. And we were an early adopter of biometric technology to try to streamline passenger processing on the land, air, and sea. So that includes, to what we had discussed earlier, the use of AI. It was one of the earliest uses we deployed of AI in the agency. Well, since 2018, we've processed almost 700 million travelers using biometric information. I'll say this, we also confirmed in that over 446,000 overstays and over 2,000 imposters. Now, 2,000's a lot. Set aside against millions of travelers, it's a very tiny percentage, and it proves the use of the technology. It's also, we're looking to expand that facial recognition and biometric capture at some of the foreign departure gates for travel to the United States. Well, I sort of went off a little bit, so I want to bring myself back to the mobile passport control. That's another example of the digital first technology. It's available at 52 ports of entry, and it allows people to submit their information in advance for vetting against the CBP system, so that your passport information. That gives the traveler increasingly a touchless experience. They don't have to present documents, and the officer isn't required to, you might recall this from foreign travel, taking a picture of everyone. Well, it's already been provided and submitted. Well, that allows a much better facilitation, a very digital experience for the traveler. It also allows a critical digital experience for the CBP officer so they can focus on the interview and not the validation of all of this data. It's already been validated. So now they can zero in on what they uniquely can do. And it's less about identification validity, and it's more on the actual interview to allow any questions they may have from the data that's been presented by the technology that the officer has in front of them.
Well, just to bring it full circle, it really does tie together the national security and the customer experience.
Exactly.
All of this is happening seamlessly. There's no bottlenecks. There's no lines. There's no pileup of waiting to get processed. It's all happening organically, and it's a net positive.
It is, very much so. It's for the traveling public and the experience. From the national security perspective, if you don't have a concern, and we know your background, you're going to move much faster through the process, including on the global entry side, where we now have facial recognition. It allows people to no longer have to stand in front of the global entry kiosk. They can just keep walking, literally keep walking, sometimes to the slight confusion of the traveler. If they haven't experienced before, they're wondering why they see a green check. It bounced against our system, and they can proceed, and they're waiting to know, should somebody tell me something? And we'll just say, please come forward. So that is great for the traveler. And for our officers and agents, they are able to actually much better experience conducting their job in a more efficient and effective way that maximizes national security and efficiency because they have the information in front of them.
Yeah. Well, it really drives home the point to me that automation has been something you guys have been working on for a while now. It's not just the shiny new thing.
Right.
This has had a history at CBP.
That's right, and that automation, be it in the examples I've just mentioned or the non-intrusive inspection technology, others, has been directly driven by the need to ensure the highest standards for the national security mission, and also to meet the needs of the enormous volume that is coming at us every single day at every port of entry of goods and people. And so that automation is accompanied always with looking at, is there a better way to simplify this process? How can we innovate? How can we integrate? I mentioned a lot of the Power BIs that are developed by our people. Mm-hmm. That all ties into using technology, automation, if you will, digitization, to facilitate, and with max efficiency, facilitate the national security against an ever-increasing flow. And we know that, unfortunately, by virtue of our national security mission, there are at times the bad actors trying to come into the country. The more that we can shift our automation, our innovation towards facilitating and identifying first, securing and facilitating the entrance of those that we don't have concerns about. Then we're able to zero in and have more time to thoughtfully review, use the officer intuition, the unique human-centered skill sets they bring to focus in on those bad actors and while continuing the secure facilitation for everyone else. It's a very critical nexus that I think saying a balance between national security and facilitation is incorrect. It has to be an integration, and it is at CBP, and we are using technology to deliver that on any given day, be it in a small scale at a particular office for a certain Power BI, or large scale across the NII or global entry, and our other technologies that we use at a national scale. And we're constantly looking for better ways to just buy back a minute or two of time of mission across the agency to deliver back to the delivery of secure facilitation of lawful trade and travel. So no work is declared done. We keep going at it and looking for more, and always drawing on the experiences of our employees, because they're the front line.
Well, to that point that the work's never done, there's always a next step
Right.
beyond this. Can you tell me a little bit more where you see this technology, this tool of the trade evolving and going? Maybe perhaps
Sure.
on the trade side of things. Can you tell me
Sure.
where that's going?
Absolutely. We're focusing on, in the trade space, as I mentioned, there's a lot of still use of paper because it's such an enormously complex system. In the automated commercial environment that we utilize, which is a great modernization over the last many years, we call this a single window, where people are able to integrate their needs and their information that's being filed into one central spot. And as part of that, we have been looking at moving certain tech demos, we call them, running the pilots to see how we may be able to move from paper to the digital side in the spaces of, for example, foodstuffs that come to the port, pipeline oil and others, and expanding on the vessel entrance clearance system I mentioned earlier. That's been a very high success recognized in moving from paper to digital. And we're looking at how do we save that time and count the burden reduction or elimination and put that time back to mission. So there's a lot on the trade side. It's actually, interestingly, Jory, I think, to me at least, it's the trade space is the oldest mission of the Customs Service, right? Goods coming into the country and customs duties that bring in an enormous amount of revenue for the federal government. So our focus on that space and being able to deliver more efficiently and move it in the digital is a cost, and it's an ability to gain more dollars into the federal revenue, while also ensuring facilitation of trade and innovation as well. So we're excited to work on these. We have been excited to see how this is working and going to deliver more, be it in the food safety or food security and other spaces, and also what that means for our international partners and our trading partners as well.
That was James McCament, the Chief Digital Transformation Officer for Customs and Border Protection. You can find more data coverage at federalnewsnetwork.com. I'm Jory Heckman, and thanks for listening to this episode of All About Data.
Thanks for listening to All About Data on Federal News Radio, part of Federal News Network. You can listen to this episode and past episodes anytime in your favorite podcast app. Search for All About Data on Podcast One, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your shows.